Recon requesting Hellstorm strike.
Attack deploy beacon planted.
Controlling RCXD.
What is going on, ladies and gents of YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and more specifically my experience, my thoughts and impressions on the multiplayer mode. Now keep in mind I'm playing this on the Xbox One X and I've played till around about level 40-41 in the multiplayer mode now, so not a massively extensive period of time but enough to really witness all the maps and the different things that they have to offer there, and that's what my thoughts and impressions will be based on. Now if you like today's video, don't forget to hit that like button and of course ring the bell so you can get all of the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 content in your inbox. Let's jump straight into it. Now I found it really easy to give my thoughts and impressions on the Blackout mode within Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and that's simply because it is the best thing that they have to offer for this game. And you know, rightfully so, obviously they've not taken a fresh idea here, they've really listened to what people are playing at the moment, what they love about the additions of PUBG and Fortnite that makes them so popular, and they've taken that and brought that to the Call of Duty world. And to be honest with you, I feel like they've really made that one the most crisp and clear part of the game without so many issues. Not as much can be said about their multiplayer mode, but I have to say that it is really good to get a Call of Duty game where I can come back to that same Call of Duty experience and play multiplayer the way I've always loved. Now, in previous iterations of this game, there have been a lot of movement abilities that, to be honest with you, when playing on a console has caused a few frame rate issues and some lag and performance things, and you know, we're getting time delays in terms of damage calculations, and they've removed a lot of those movement abilities that really sort of took away from the standard Call of Duty experience, and I'm very, very thankful for that, and I think a lot of players reiterate that feeling as well. So in the multiplayer specifically, there are a lot of ups and a lot of downs there, and plenty to talk about. We know there are some tweets coming out from Treyarch, and they're talking about their acknowledgement for some of the problems that are happening within different versions of the game. Specifically, Xbox One X have had some stability issues within multiplayer, and that's mostly due to some problems that they've got when you're actually partying up. And we all know Microsoft Xbox have always had party problems within a lot of multiplayer games, so I don't know if this is a matter of them trying to figure out if it's coming from the actual console itself or if they need to do something on their end, but they have said that they're working hard to investigate some of those issues and that they will update us when they find more information. To be honest with you, it's a little sad, just simply based on the fact that it sounds like they don't know how to fix it at the moment, and it could be a little while before we get it, but unfortunately that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and hopefully they get on top of this quite soon. Now very quickly, the first issue that you're seeing in front of you is me trying to place an object, and in this sense it was the sentry gun from the score streaks. I actually lost the sentry gun due to the fact that it wouldn't place anywhere. I tried on top of that tipped truck, I tried on top of the ground, I was pulling the trigger. I know how to place items because I've done it multiple times before with other objects, but it just didn't seem to be working. The other one you're seeing in front of you right now is a reticle problem, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but quite simply, as you can see, I'm zooming in, there is no reticle, and it just seems to bring itself back eventually. As I turn this corner, you will sort of see it pop back right now, and here it comes, and there it is. And this is a problem that Treyarch have already acknowledged, but like I said, I talk a little bit about that later. But with the placement issue, you can totally see this problem with other things like the shield placement, and that's also happening in the Blackout mode as well. So they really need to figure out a way to make these objects better placeable, because you work really hard for these streaks and you work really hard to be able to place these items, or you work really hard to find the stuff when you're in Blackout mode, and then if you can't use it, especially in dire situations, then obviously that's detrimental to your gameplay, and that's not a good thing. So overall, coming back to this Call of Duty multiplayer experience, it's still a lot of fun, and the introductions to specialists and bringing those into the game, to be honest with you, it feels great. The specialists feel quite balanced, and they've all got their own part of the game there. There are some more supportive, there are some that are more solo based, and I think creating a squad around the specialists, especially when it comes to different types of maps and if you want to play competitively, I think these are a really good thing. Now, I've tried to sink some time into all of the different specialist kinds, and what I've noticed about them is that creating a squad around having the right type of specialists in different game modes and different maps is really fantastic. You've got some supportive that are designed to help your friends as well as yourself find enemies on the map. There are some that are way more defensive, and you think about this for control zones and things like that. There's some that are more solo based, and if you really want a great carry within your team, then those are also good for that. So they're all very good for different reasons, and I really like the way they've balanced these specialists out, and they just feel fantastic. And you can actually add your own sort of stuff to it by adding your class, which is all of your equipment and the gun types and the attachments and things like that, to the specialist itself. So you kind of have your own iteration of that as well. Now let's talk about a couple of issues in multiplayer, and there are quite a few, and I feel like that some of them will be tweaked sooner and some of them will remain in the game for an extensive period of time. First off, let's talk about jumping, because I personally have a problem with the jumping that's happened. It honestly feels like players have come directly out of Fortnite and they are jumping around like Fortnite players, and there's actually no negative impact to jumping. The thing is, I think there's a hitbox issue with the legs down, and they don't seem to really connect the same. So I don't know if the jumping is based around that, but also at the same time, if you're an offensive player jumping, you jump around a corner and you aim and you shoot, there doesn't seem to be any downfall to the accuracy, and I think that's a major issue. If you can continue to jump and hold on to exactly the same accuracy and the hitbox against you is diminished, then there's a real issue there. There's a massive advantage for something that's quite silly, to be honest. I understand that jumping is kind of a dodging technique that's been around Call of Duty for a while, but I'm noticing a significant upgrade to the number of people who are just jumping all the time, and I honestly think it's come out of those other multiplayer games like Fortnite and PUBG, where people they're always jumping to avoid getting damaged, and I'm just seeing it more and more in Call of Duty, and I'm hoping that they fix a little bit of this. They either fix the hitboxes, they fix the accuracy, or they do both, just so that if you're jumping around, you're coming off a higher level and you're jumping down as well, the weapon should not be that accurate. It really shouldn't. In midair, after performing a jump like that, there's no accuracy that should remain exactly the same as when your feet are solidly planted on the ground. Next on the downside agenda is the really big one, and this is the one that a lot of people are talking about, and it's a problem. It really is. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, I don't know if you've got the game in front of you, if you've been playing it, but in Black Ops 4, they have basically recycled maps from previous iterations of Call of Duty, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. I love a lot of the maps that they brought over, but at the same time, there's nothing sort of new and fresh to those maps. They've kind of just given them a refurbishment to make them look a little prettier, and they've carried over a lot of that level design stuff that existed in previous Call of Duties. So we talk about this because things have changed in the current Call of Duty. You've now got your specialists, and you don't have those fast moving systems that you had in the previous Call of Duty. So you're not jetpacking around and dashing really fast and things like that. But one thing they didn't change much of is the spawning, and the spawning really had to be looked at in testing phases of this part of the game, because we're heading into some of these maps and half of your lobby disappears because they know that they're going to come into this map and they are either going to get spawn camped dramatically, and we're talking to the point where you're appearing on the map and already being shot at as you're appearing on the map with no time to react whatsoever, and that's a problem. That is a huge problem. And if you're not there, if your team's not getting spawn camped, then you are the spawn campers. And it's just purely based around the fact that the game is allowing it and people are taking advantage of it. It is really that simple. And it's also camp or be camped. It really is. So some of these problems can be easily fixed just by looking at the way the spawns work, the spawn rates work, maybe adding additional spawn places. But something has to be done. Treyarch themselves have gone onto Twitter and other social media admitting that there are some issues with the spawning, and more particularly within domination, and I think the problem is occurring in a few other things as well. We're talking kill confirmed in team deathmatch as well. I'm seeing it all the time, and like I said, you take your lobby over after finishing a game, and as soon as that map appears, half of the lobby disappears, because it's not fun. It doesn't even matter if you're on the winning side of it. It does not feel like that much of a fun game to play. So this needs to be looked at, like I said, and I feel like that during their testing phases and with their budgets, they've really just put most of their extra efforts and extra time into the Blackout part of the game, which feels a lot more crisp and a lot more advanced. And granted, they don't have spawn points, so therefore they can't have spawn point issues, but the Blackout mode, it feels polished, and the multiplayer mode feels like they kind of skimped a little bit. You know, they removed the movement system, and they did really well with the specialist system, but in terms of the level design and the map design, I think they really skimped on the budget there, and I think they could have put a lot more hours and emphasis into making this game a little bit better with the maps themselves. They could have also brought 1 or 2 new maps out, but that's neither here nor there. What the problem really is the way the gameplay is with some of these maps at the moment, and it's just the way the spawns work. Now, I have a lot of fun on maps that feel really balanced, and you know, most of the maps are like that, but there are at least 2, probably 3, that have major spawning issues, and fingers crossed that something is done about this quite soon. Treyarch have said that that's what they're going to do, so let's see how that plays out there. Now lastly, I just want to talk about the balancing. I feel like the specialists are very nicely balanced, I really do. I do think there's a couple of things that will probably be tweaked, and this is based on not just my personal thoughts, but also the feedback from the community playing this game. The one that comes up consistently and the most is the Nomad special ability, which is to call out a dog. Now this dog can be changed to either guard you as a player or go around the map and attack enemy players. Now none of these two things are an issue for me. I think that's great, and I think the dog is a really fun element to bring back into Call of Duty. We might have remembered that there were dogs in other versions of Call of Duty before, and I have absolutely no problem with there being that. The thing that I think needs to be fixed and looked at, and this is exactly what everyone is talking about on social media, and that is the amount of HP that the dog has. Now the dog actually locks onto you and will continuously chase you, and by the way is much faster than you, and will launch from a really far distance and kill you with one single bite. The only issue with this is that it takes so many bullets and so much damage to actually go down and die that the chances are that it will get quite a few kills before it's even remotely taken down. Now, if you get friends and everyone actually turns on the dog at the right time and helps you out, then that dog will go down quick enough for you to not really have too many deaths on the team. But I still feel like that dog is a little bit overpowered, and you know, this is why the Nomad is so popular at the moment, because the dogs are super strong. The player has to do absolutely nothing while the dog runs around and gets, you know, usually a pretty decent number of kills before it is taken down. So this is something that probably needs to be tweaked a tiny bit. I think at least take maybe 10 to 20% of the dog's health off, or change the damage that it's actually taking in sort of a defensive way, and you know, just balance it out a little bit more, because that seems to be the one that stands out the most. You know, I feel like all the specialist abilities are really good, and they all feel like they've got their own thing to it to make it feel quite balanced, but that Nomad one, it does feel like it's a little advanced, and hopefully they do something about that. Now, the next issue I think has been patched. Well, Treyarch have said that they've addressed the issue, and that is a reticle problem that happened with, most specifically with the reflex and holographic, but it has happened on a lot of different sites in the game. So what it is the actual reticle, the dot on your sights, just disappears for some apparent weird reason. Hopefully this is fixed the way Treyarch have said. I haven't gone back to those sites to really test that theory out, but there was also another problem where the actual camouflage of the weapon, the skin, when you're personalizing your weapon, goes straight over the clear part of your sight as well. Unfortunately I didn't catch this on recording, but it happened with a green camo that I had on one of my weapons, and I couldn't actually see anything through, including the reticle. I couldn't see nothing but camouflage. I wasn't actually able to see what I was shooting at. So fingers crossed this problem has been, you know, resolved and sorted, but I just thought I'd share that experience that I had early on when I first started playing multiplayer. Now, something else that should be brought into this conversation is the addition of healing. I feel like this is such a great addition to the game. Now, obviously they needed to think about something when creating the Blackout mode in order to make that sort of survivability experience a little more realistic. You know, you don't want to go out there like a typical Call of Duty game and die in 2 shots, and quite literally that's your only life in the game. I think these Blackout modes would never last, even if there is 100 people on this massive map. So they had to create a system where they could heal and survive a little bit longer, but they've taken the healing part of that and they've brought that into the multiplayer experience. I'm really enjoying having that extra thing to think about, because not only does it help you with things like creating a score streak and staying alive longer, but because it does give you something else to think about. You're not just quite simply killing somebody and reaching for the reload button. You've got to kill somebody and think about moving on from there, chucking on your heal, because the heal is obviously very important to stay alive, which is sort of like a heal over time effect. And then you have the ability to stay alive for longer. You're not spawning as often as you normally do, and these are all really good aspects. I am enjoying the balancing of the healing. I think the healing is just enough. I don't think it needs to really be changed at all. It's enough to keep you alive for a little bit longer, but because it's a heal over time effect, you're not instantly at 100% health straight away. So if you're in a pretty heavy firefight situation, the chances are that even though you are healing during that fight, you probably still will go down a little bit easier as well. So like I said, they've done a good job in integrating this, and this is probably one of the best things they've brought into the multiplayer experience. So we've talked about the pros, we've talked about the cons, and I know it seems like we concentrated pretty heavily on the cons, but it's just more, those are topics that need discussing, and a little bit more information out there is always good for those sorts of things. But that doesn't mean I have a negative feeling around multiplayer. It is honestly still a great Call of Duty genuine experience in multiplayer, and I still get that Call of Duty nostalgia with Black Ops 4, like I did with the other Black Ops games as well. I think the removal of the movement sort of jetpacking system was a good move, even though I'm a pretty big fan of dashing around. I think it just didn't really add enough to the game other than problems, and now that they've removed that, I think the game just feels a bit better. Specialist, one of the best things I've ever brought into it. I love the Specialist. I'm really happy with that. I think that's the thing that's going to keep me playing multiplayer for a longer period of time. And I like a lot of things around this, and if they can just tweak some things around the maps, maybe a little bit of balancing, I think they've got themselves a real winner in a game mode. So those are just some of my thoughts and impressions on Call of Duty Black Ops 4 multiplayer. Now obviously all of my experiences come from the Xbox One X, so it could be a little bit different for PC and PS4 players out there as well. But what I say is that even though there are a couple of tweaking issues that need to be sorted out, this game is absolutely well worth your money, and I can see you sinking a lot of hours between the 3 gameplay modes available, and you'll definitely get your money's worth there. As I mentioned earlier, if you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Call of Duty content. There will be another video coming out really soon, and that is of our first squad-based zombies experience, and I took the boys in for our Roman arena style gameplay, and to be honest, with the lack of knowledge that we had, we held our own really well. We went quite far, and right at the end there we did run into some problems that actually ended our game for us. So keep an eye out for that video in the next 24 to 48 hours, and I will give you all my thoughts and impressions on that one, and I hope to see you guys in that one. See ya.